my money? 6 years, I sent you money every single month. What money are you talking about, Clara? We never received anything from you. Nothing? Mama, I suffered in Lagos for 6 years because of this family.
Then maybe you should tell us where you kept all that money. Don't come here and accuse people.
You took it. You all did. I will find out where every naira went. And when I do, you will explain it. Clara, stop this nonsense. You have come back from Lagos looking for trouble. No, something is wrong here. And I will find out the truth.
I thought loyalty was a language my family understood, until the day I stood in front of our house in Warri, bags in hand, and my own mother looked at me like I was a stranger asking for directions. My name is Clara. For 6 years, I worked as a cleaner in Lagos, scrubbing floors that were not mine, folding clothes that were not mine, saving every naira like it was blood from my own body. Every single month, without missing one, I sent money home. School fees for my younger brother, Stanley, hospital bills for my mother's hip, roofing sheets for the house after the storm carried half of it away. I sent it all. I never kept a kobo for myself that I did not need to survive. So when my madam in Lagos finally sold her house and let me go, I packed my small bag with a heart full of joy. I was coming home. Not rich, but proud. Proud that for 6 years I had carried my family on my back and never let them fall. The bus dropped me at the junction near evening when the sky was turning orange and the smell of roasting corn drifted from the roadside. My chest was tight with excitement. I could already imagine my mother's arms around my neck, Stanley running to grab my bags, the neighbors peeping through their windows to see the girl who made it in Lagos. But when I pushed open that rusted gate, something felt wrong immediately. My mother sat on the veranda, arms folded, her face hard like stone. Stanley stood beside her, refusing to look at me. My uncle, Festus, leaned against the wall with a toothpick in his mouth, watching me the way a hawk watches a chick. "Mama," I called out, dropping my bag, "it's me, Clara." She did not stand. She did not smile. She simply said 4 words that cracked something inside my chest. "Where is our money?" I laughed, thinking it was a joke, a strange way of teasing me after so long. "Mama, I sent money every month. You know this." Her eyes turned cold. "We never received anything, Clara. Not 1 naira. For 6 years, you left us here to suffer, and now you come back with lies on your tongue?" The corn seller's smoke stung my eyes. Or maybe it was something else. My uncle stepped forward, arms crossed, his voice dripping with accusation. "Everybody in this compound will tell you," he said. "This family has struggled alone. No money from Lagos, no message, nothing. Tell us the truth, Clara. Where did you hide the money you say you sent?" My knees went weak. 6 years of sacrifice, of skipping meals so I could send an extra 5,000 naira, of crying alone in a small room because I missed my family, all of it standing in front of me now, calling me a liar. I looked at Stanley, the brother whose school fees I paid with my own sweat. He looked away. That was the moment I knew. Something was very wrong in this house, and I was going to find out exactly what. That night, I could not sleep. I lay on the same old mattress I grew up on, staring at the ceiling. My mind ran back through 6 years like a film reel that refused to stop. I remembered every transfer, every bank alert, every time I stood in a queue at the money transfer shop in Aja, sweating under the Lagos sun, sending 10,000 here, 15,000 there, sometimes even 50,000 when Mama's hip pain got worse. I remembered calling home every single time to confirm they had received it. And every single time, my mother's voice on the phone said, "Yes, Clara, we got it. God bless you, my daughter." So where did it go? The next morning, I woke up to the sound of raised voices outside. I peeped through the window and saw my mother arguing quietly with Uncle Festus behind the water tank, their voices low but sharp like knives being sharpened. I could not hear everything, but I caught one phrase that froze my blood. Before she started asking for the passbook. Passbook? My chest tightened. There had been a passbook. Years ago, before I left for Lagos, my mother had opened a savings account in the local bank, insisting it would be safer for the money I sent so it could grow for the family's future. I had trusted her. I had trusted all of them. I walked into the kitchen, pretending I had heard nothing. Mama was frying akara, the oil popping and hissing, filling the room with a smell that used to mean home and comfort. Now it just made my stomach turn. Mama, I said carefully, do you still have the account book? The one from Union Trust Bank, the one you opened for my money? Her hand froze over the pan for just 1 second, but I saw it. What account book? She said, not turning around. Clara, are you now confusing yourself? There was never an account. My uncle appeared in the doorway as if he had been listening the whole time. Clara, you have been away too long, he said, shaking his head with false pity. Lagos has changed your memory. Nobody opened any account for you. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake them both and ask them why they were lying to my face after everything I sacrificed. But something told me to stay calm, to play along, to watch and listen instead of exposing my hand too early. Because deep inside, a small voice was whispering something I did not want to believe. Someone in this house had stolen 6 years of my sweat, and they were prepared to lie to their last breath to keep it hidden. I smiled at my mother, picked up a piece of akara and said softly, "You're right, Mama. Maybe I'm just tired from the journey." But my eyes had already moved to Stanley, standing quietly by the door, gripping his phone like it held a secret he was terrified I would discover.
Stanley was 17 now. Tall and quiet, nothing like the small, playful boy I left behind 6 years ago. He barely spoke to me since I arrived, and every time I looked at him, he found somewhere else to place his eyes. I found him alone that evening, sitting under the mango tree behind the house, the same tree we used to climb as children. I sat beside him without a word, just like old times, letting the silence settle between us like dust after a storm. "Stanley," I finally said, "I paid your West African exams fees, myself, 65,000 naira. I remember the exact date I sent it, March, 3 years ago. Do you remember receiving new textbooks that term, new sandals?" His hand trembled slightly on his phone. He did not answer. "Stanley, look at me." Slowly, he lifted his head, and what I saw in his eyes broke something deep inside me. Not defiance, not anger, but fear. Pure, suffocating fear. "Sister," he whispered, glancing toward the house to make sure no one was listening. "I did not get new textbooks that term. I wore torn sandals to write my exams. I begged my classmates' mother for exam fees because Mama said there was no money." The world seemed to tilt beneath me. "Then where did my money go, Stanley? 65,000 naira does not simply disappear." Tears filled his eyes and his voice dropped to almost nothing. "I don't know everything, sister, but sometimes when the alert used to come to Mama's phone afterward, she would say things like, 'The money has entered, come and collect your own before the children start asking questions.'" My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. "Are you telling me Uncle Festus has been collecting my money?" Stanley nodded, then quickly shook his head, panic flooding his young face. "Please, sister, don't tell them I said anything. Uncle Festus said if anyone talks, he will make sure I never finish school. He said he knows people. He said..." Before he could finish, we both heard footsteps crunching through dry leaves behind us. Stanley jumped up so fast his phone nearly fell from his hands. When I turned, Uncle Festus stood there, arms folded, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. "What are you two discussing so seriously?" he asked, his eyes moving between us like a predator deciding which prey to strike first. "Nothing, Uncle," Stanley stammered as he was backing away toward the house. Festus's eyes settled on me, cold and unreadable. "Clara, be careful the kind of poison you pour into this boy's ear. Some doors, once you open them, you can never close again." It was not advice, it was a warning. And in that moment, standing under the mango tree where I once played without a single worry, I understood something with terrifying clarity. This was no longer about missing money. This was about a man who had built years of comfort on my sacrifice, and he was prepared to protect that comfort by any means necessary. I did not sleep again that night. By morning, I had made up my mind. If my family would not tell me the truth, the bank would. I dressed simply, tucked my old transfer receipts, the ones I had foolishly kept folded in the bottom of my travel bag for 6 years, more from habit than suspicion, and took a bike to Union Trust Bank in town. The banking hall was cool and quiet, ceiling fans spinning lazily above rows of customers waiting on wooden benches. My hands were sweating as I approached the customer service desk, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to escape my chest entirely. "Good morning," I said to the young woman behind the desk, my voice shakier than I intended. "I need to find out about an account. It should be under my mother's name, opened about 6 years ago. I have some deposit slips." She took my old receipts, studied them, then typed quietly into her computer for what felt like an eternity. I watched her face for any reaction, any twitch that would tell me what she was seeing. "Ma," she said finally, "this account is still active. Would you like a statement?" Active. My mother had told me there was no account. My uncle had told me I was confused. And yet, here it was, active, alive, breathing with 6 years of my labor. I paid for the statement and stepped outside into the sun, my hands trembling so badly I could barely unfold the papers. I found a bench under a tree and forced myself to read. Line after line, I saw my deposits, exactly as I remembered. 10,000 naira, 15,000 naira, 50,000 naira the month Mama's hip surgery happened, 65,000 naira for Stanley's exam fees. It was all there, faithfully recorded, undeniable proof that I had never once failed my family. But then I saw the withdrawals. Almost every single deposit had been withdrawn within days, sometimes hours of arriving. Not me, not for hospital bills, not for school fees, cash withdrawals, ATM withdrawals, transfers to another account entirely, an account number I did not recognize, but one that appeared over 40 times across 6 years. My stomach turned. I flagged down a young man selling recharge cards nearby and asked to use his phone to check the account name attached to that number through a banking app. It took a few tries, a few naira spent, and a lot of patience, but finally the name appeared on the small cracked screen. Festus Okoro. My uncle. I sat frozen on that bench, statement trembling in my hands, the afternoon sun beating down on my neck, sweat sliding down my back, while somewhere across town, my mother and uncle were probably rehearsing more lies to feed me at dinner. 6 years, over 2 million naira were my rough count, moved into his account, while my mother lied to my face and my brother wore torn sandals to his exams. I folded the statement carefully, tucked it inside my wrapper against my skin like a weapon, and stood up. If they wanted a fight, I would give them one.
I waited until evening, when the whole family gathered for dinner, the way we always did growing up. Pounded yam, egusi soup, the clinking of spoons against bowls, Mama asking about everyone's day like nothing in this world was wrong. Tonight, I let her ask. I let the small talk breathe for a while, watching Uncle Festus laugh at his own jokes, watching Stanley pick at his food with his eyes down, watching my mother move around the table like a woman with nothing to hide. Then, I placed the folded bank statement on the table right beside the soup bowl and said nothing. I simply watched. Silence fell over the room like a heavy blanket.
My mother's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. Uncle Festus's laughter died in his throat. Stanley's eyes widened, darting between the paper and my face. "What is this?" my mother asked, though her voice had already lost its confidence. "Open it," I said quietly. "Read it yourself, Mama, since you insist there was never any account." Her hands shook as she unfolded the paper. I watched her eyes scan the lines, watched the color drain slowly from her face as she reached the withdrawal history, the transfers, the name that appeared over and over again like a curse. "Festus," she whispered, and for the first time in this entire nightmare, I heard something break in her voice. Not guilt for lying to me, but shock, real shock, as if she too was seeing this clearly for the first time. "You told me there was nothing left," she shouted suddenly, slamming her palm on the table so hard the balls rattled. "You told me the money finished on hospital bills. You told me business failed. Festus, what is this?" So she had not orchestrated it alone. She had been fed lies too, comfortable lies that let her sleep at night while her own daughter suffered in Lagos. Uncle Festus's composure cracked for just a moment before he rebuilt his mask, standing up so fast his chest scraped loudly against the floor. "This girl has come from Lagos to cause confusion in this family," he barked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "Bank statements can be fabricated. Who even printed this? Where did you get it?" "From the bank itself," I said, with my own receipts as proof of every deposit I made. "Uncle, you can deny it all you want, but numbers do not lie. Your account number does not lie." "You ungrateful girl," he roared, moving around the table towards me, and for a moment real fear gripped me. But Stanley, quiet, timid Stanley, suddenly stood between us, his voice trembling but firm. "Leave my sister alone, Uncle. I heard you on the phone with Mama's line before, Uncle. I heard you tell someone to collect your own whenever an alert entered. I was afraid to say it before. I am not afraid anymore." The room fell into a stunned, ringing silence. My mother stared at her brother, the man she had trusted, the man she had defended, the man who had let her believe her own daughter had abandoned her, and something in her eyes shifted from confusion into pure blazing fury. "Get out of my house," she said to him, her voice shaking with rage. "Get out of my house, Festus, before I do something I cannot take back." Uncle Festus did not leave quietly. Cornered men rarely do. "Fine," he spat, backing toward the door, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool evening air. "Fine, you want the truth. I took the money, yes, but who do you think has been managing this family while your precious daughter was in Lagos playing big madam? Who paid for your hip surgery consultation when the money was slow? Who fixed the generator? I have been helping this family too." "With my money," I shouted, finally letting 6 years of swallowed pain crack open. "Money for my mother, for my brother, not for you to build whatever life you have been building on the side. Do you know what I sacrificed? Do you know I skipped meals in Lagos so I could send that 50,000 naira for Mama's hip? And you are spending it on yourself while my brother wore torn sandals to his final exams?" My voice broke on the last words, tears finally spilling down my cheeks, 6 years of loneliness and sacrifice pouring out of me all at once. I remember the small, dark room I rented in Ajah, the nights I cried myself to sleep from exhaustion and homesickness, the days I ate only garri and sugar because I sent every spare naira home. All of it, stolen, while I believed I was protecting my family. My mother's legs seemed to give way beneath her, and she sank into her chair, hands covering her face. 6 years, she whispered. 6 years I believed we were struggling because business was hard. 6 years I felt guilty that my daughter suffered in Lagos for nothing. Festus, how could you do this to your own sister's children? "You don't understand pressure," he shouted back, but his voice had lost its fire now, replaced by something closer to desperation. "I had debts. I had responsibilities you know nothing about. I always planned to pay it back." 6 years is not a plan, I said quietly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. 6 years is theft.
Neighbors had begun to gather outside, drawn by the shouting, faces peering over the fence, whispers rippling through the compound like wind through dry leaves. Uncle looked around, realizing suddenly that his careful mask, built over 6 years, had shattered in front of witnesses. "I want my money back," I said steadily, my voice stronger than I felt inside. "Every naira, Uncle Festus. And if you refuse, I will take this statement, these receipts, and I will go straight to the police station tomorrow morning. Theft is theft, whether it is a stranger's money or your own sister's daughter's sweat." His face twisted with panic. "You would send your own uncle to prison?" I looked at him for a long moment, thinking of Stanley's torn sandals, my mother's guilt-filled tears, my own exhausted night in a cold Lagos room, and I said the words that surprised even me with how calm they sounded. "You sent yourself there the day you decided to steal from a child, working herself to the bone for her family."
The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, I walked to the small police post near the market, statement and receipts folded neatly in a nylon bag against my chest. My legs felt heavy, my heart heavier, but my mind was clear. The officer at the desk, a stern-faced woman named Officer Rebecca, listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally glancing down at the documents I laid before her. When I finished, she looked up at me with something between sympathy and quiet respect. "This happens more than people know," she said, sliding the papers into a file. "Family members stealing from those working hard abroad or in Lagos or wherever they've gone to suffer for better life. Most victims never find out. You are lucky you kept your receipts." Word moved fast in our small town. By afternoon, Uncle Festus had been invited to the station for questioning. I watched from a distance as he arrived, no longer the confident, toothpick-chewing man from the veranda, but a shrunken figure, sweating through his shirt, avoiding the eyes of neighbors who had gathered to watch the spectacle unfold. Inside, faced with the bank statement, the withdrawal patterns, and Stanley's willingness to testify to what he had overheard, Festus's resistance finally crumbled entirely. He confessed everything. 6 years of deposits redirected into his own account, spent on a car he later sold when debts caught up with him, on a girlfriend in another town who knew nothing of where his money came from, on debts from a business that had failed long before I ever left for Lagos. The officer explained my options plainly. I could press full criminal charges, which could send him to prison for years, or I could pursue a restitution agreement, forcing him to repay what remained recoverable while facing a formal warning and community exposure. I thought of my mother's tear-streaked face the night before, of Stanley standing between us with newfound courage, of the family I still had, broken as it was. Prison would satisfy anger, but it would not fix Stanley's ruined final exam year, would not undo my exhausted Lagos nights, and would not put a single naira back into my hands. I chose restitution, but with conditions carved in iron. Festus would repay every recoverable naira through his remaining assets. A small piece of land he still owned would be sold to cover what he could not repay in cash, and the agreement would be documented officially, witnessed by the police, so there would be no room left for more lies. He signed with a trembling hand, unable to meet my eyes. As I walked out of that station into the golden afternoon light, I felt something inside me loosen for the first time in 6 years. Not full peace yet, but the beginning of it. The truth was finally standing in daylight, undressed of every lie that had clothed it for so long. 3 months later, I stood again at that same rusted gate, but everything felt different this time. The land Festus owned had been sold, and combined with what remained recoverable from his salary and assets,
Most of my 6 years of sacrifice had been returned. Not all of it, some had truly vanished into debts long spent, but enough. Enough to matter, enough to mean something. I used part of it to finally fix the roof properly, the one I had paid for years ago that had somehow never been completed. I enrolled Stanley in a proper tutorial center to prepare for his university entrance exams, watching pride replace the fear that used to live in his eyes. I took my mother to a proper hospital for her hip, not the makeshift treatments Festus's lies had forced upon her for years. My mother and I sat together on the veranda one evening, the same veranda where she once looked at me like a stranger, and this time she reached for my hand and held it tightly, her eyes wet with a different kind of tears. I should have questioned him sooner, she said softly. I should have trusted my daughter's word over my brother's excuses. I am sorry, Clara. I am so sorry for the months you spent thinking your own family called you a liar for loving people who almost let a thief define your sacrifice. You didn't know, Mama, I said, squeezing her hand. He made sure of that. The important thing is we know now, and we fixed what could be fixed. Stanley came outside just then, carrying 2 plates of roasted corn, the smell rich and familiar, no longer bitter with betrayal like it had been the day I arrived. He sat beside me, leaning his head briefly on my shoulder, the way he used to when he was small. Thank you, sister, he said quietly, for not giving up, even when everyone made you feel like you were the problem. I looked out over the compound, watching the sun sink low and orange behind the mango tree, the same tree where fear had once gripped my brother's voice, now standing tall and peaceful in the evening light. Uncle Festus was gone from our lives, his name rarely spoken, his lies finally buried under truth that could never be undone again. 6 years of sacrifice had almost been stolen into silence, but truth, once it finds daylight, cannot be pushed back into darkness. I did not just recover my money that year, I recovered my family's trust, my brother's confidence, my mother's clarity, and my own voice, the voice that refused to be called a liar for loving people who almost let a thief define her sacrifice. If you made it to the end of this story, you already know. Never let anyone silence you when the truth is on your side. Justice may take time, but it always finds its way home. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more real, emotional African stories like Clara's, because the next story might just be the one that changes how you see your own family.